Hey Jesse, I thought I'd make you a tutorial just because it's more fun to watch these kind of tutorials. So, um, so the first thing I'd suggest, that's Cora howling like a dog. The first thing I'd suggest when you open Blender, it's like, how do I select the cube? How do I select the light? Usually the clicks are like, and by the way, you can see what buttons I'm pushing here, but I'd first suggest going to User Preferences, and if you click Input, like you can select up here, Input is select with, you want to do left click, because that's what we're used to, and then you save your user settings. So now when you select the box, this is your camera. It should be, if you have a number pad, like I'm using a laptop, but if you have a number pad and you push 0, it like goes to the camera view. If you push 1 on your number pad, it goes to the front view. 3 goes to the right side view. 5 is above, I believe. No, 5 is 7 is above. And there's 2 different views. Like this is the default view, but if you go to orthographic mode by hitting 5, then when you look at it from different views, it's like it's kind of hard to explain what that's doing, but it's like using graph paper or something. Like all the lines are perfectly angular. If you do the regular view, yeah, it gets like there's more depth to the view. This is like, anyways, you can play with that yourself. So a couple other things. I think normally by default you're set to Blender render, which is like if you go into the rendered view, like this is what your scene would look like right now. The light is coming from this source right here. To separate your screen, I'm just clicking this like shaded thing up there, and to get rid of this toolbar, you can hit T. And I separated the screen here. I didn't mean to, but if you right click on that border, you can say join area, and then you can choose like to join it, and I'll get rid of that. So this is actually a really cool feature about Blender. You can have like one screen in rendered mode and the other screen in like just solid shading mode. And the reason I can do that, I want that, is like then I can select these objects. I'll select the light, and I can make it a sunlight or a sun lamp. But anyways, you want to, like, people nowadays are using cycles render because it gives more like realistic results. Over here in the, so I'll go back to solid view. So over here, there's all these tabs. Like if you want to render your picture, this is where you this little camera is where you set your render settings or your animation settings if it's an animation. So like often you want to change the sampling. If you have like really high render samples, it's going to be a really high quality photo, but if you set it low to like 30, your computer will render from your camera. It'll render this picture like fairly quickly. But there are some tricks I can teach you later about how to like optimize your render. So even if you're making something that needs, you know, that you don't want to use high samples for, I can teach you how to like change some of the settings to make it look good with low samples. This is where you set render layers. If you have like, if you want to render 2 different pictures, like if you want to render a foreground and a background, this is just if you're doing like animations, you know, you can have like gravity set. So like if I opened up the tool with T, you can see like what I'm pushing. But if I make this active, and then if I cursor to center, so to add anything is Shift A, and just think, how do you spell add with an A? So Shift A is to add. So basically I made, you know, gravity is affecting these right now. Yeah, so you can turn that off. This is the world tab, which like the reason the world is gray is because it's kind of a neutral color. It actually is giving light, and normally what you do is, like if it's an outdoor scene, you have a sun lamp, And then you go to the world and you turn it to like a sky color. And then in the shadows, the sky is lighting up those shadows, making them kind of bluish rather than gray. So that's cool. What else? Your object, like when you have an object selected, the settings are going to be different than if you have a light selected. But if you have an object selected, this just gives you some information on like where it is in the scene. I have to remove that active thing and remove it. So
take a little break.
So yeah, I mean, you can move these objects by pushing G to grab them, or you can click the axis you want to move, or you can hit G to move and then say, I want to constrain it to the X axis, I want to constrain it to the Y. Since I moved this crazy to reset where it should be, or where it used to be, you can do Alt G. So like instead of grabbing it to move it, just Alt G resets that. To reset the rotation, you can do Alt R. But let me just tell you some basic like modeling tips. A lot of people often model with a cube, like starting with a cube, and then you start. So I have the cube selected, and you can add these modifiers. And if I add a subdivision surface, that cube kind of turned into a sphere. It's not a perfect sphere, but basically you want your geometry simple. So like in edit mode you can change object, edit mode. In edit mode, you can change that with tab. You have like really simple geometry, which is a cube, but it comes out looking like a sphere. So it's less vertices to work with. And then if you want that to look really spherical, you can go into the tool setting up at the top, switch it to smooth shading. We'll go to the camera mode. And I like moving the camera using Shift F is like first person view, and then you can like walk with the W, S. The W is forward, S is backwards, A is like sidestep, left. Anyways, so that's what our image is looking like now. Kind of cool. There's like a nice shadow down there. So that's this wrench is like adding modifiers. So like you can also, if I go into edit mode, one of the most important things like tools you can use is adding loop cuts. And if you forget the shortcut, you can just look it up. So like if I hit spacebar and type in loop, I want to create loop cut and slide. So just, and basically what this does is it creates this new selection where I'm going to like chop this in half. And I can chop it in half this way or that way. But if I want to chop it or dice it like multiple times using a scroll wheel, you just like scroll up and down. But let's just say I do once. If you click once, it lets you like choose, you can move that cut. If I right click, it'll reset to the center and activate that. If I don't like it, Command Z. But I like the shortcuts because you can work quicker. Command R, you're going to use it a lot, and that's to make loop cuts. So let's just make a loop cut down the center. I'm going to go to the front view, go to orthographic mode, and in wireframe mode, I'm able to like select vertices. If I go into box select mode, like there's all these different ways to select vertices. So my favorite is box select mode because it's just like selecting folders on your desktop where you can click and drag. And since I'm in wireframe mode, I'm basically seeing through the object, and now when I move to the side, I see, wow, I selected not just the one I was looking at, but the one behind it as well. So I can rotate to the side, and I'm going to delete those vertices by hitting X. I get a selection. Do I want to delete faces or vertices? And now I have this kind of weird looking spherical thing. And I'm going to turn on a mirror modifier. And we can adjust, like, do we want the mirror modifier coming first or second? But it's not, this isn't looking perfectly the way I wanted. So I can go back into wireframe mode with Z, select all those edges. If I want to select vertices, I choose this. If I want to select edges, I choose that. If I want to select faces, I choose that. And you can see how it looks a little different based on what your selection is. But I'm going to kind of merge that together, and I can turn on clipping. And now if I change this side, it changes on the opposite side too. So that's if you're like modeling machinery or some type of vehicle, you only have to model one side. But the basic rule of like modeling is you want to have really simple geometry. So like if I'm going to make a cup, I'll add a cylinder, and I have these. When I add something with Shift A, it initially gives you the option to change like how complicated the geometry is. So how many vertices do I want? I usually, if I'm making a cup, I can do like 6, and it doesn't look very good right now, but using that subsurf modifier, let me shrink that in. I'm going to go to face select mode, delete that face. And I'm going to go to edge select mode. If I hold Alt and click one edge, it's going to select the whole loop. You can extrude edges, so if I hit E, I get this crazy thing going on, but I don't want it to go up or down. I just want to scale it in, so I'll hit S to scale. And then I'm going to go to first person or front view. I'll scale it down on the Z axis, so I hit Z, and then I'll scale it in, and then I'll hit F to give it a face. Here, I'll show you that again. So that edge is selected down there. If you hit F, it gives it a face. So I have this really like basic geometry, but now if I add a subdivision surface, let's give it, like, you don't want to bring the subdivisions much up past 5 or your computer will really slow down. But now if I add a loop cut to the outside and pull that down, and then maybe add a loop cut to the top, you know, it looks like a pretty good cup. And if you go into the material section, which is over here, and oftentimes with the cycles render setting, like, people will make their materials in this node editor and choose this material. And right now it's just a basic diffuse, which you can see here. But you can change that to like glass. And now I have like this awesome glass looking thing that looks practically photorealistic without really any effort. I got to change the view to make that look a little better. So I'm going to go circle, 0, and I'll hit Shift F to aim it down, and I'll render it. So basically, if you were to remember, like, a few key things to remember are, like, if you go into edit mode and you do Control R, that's how you do loop cuts, and that's really good for like chopping up your objects into different pieces. The other thing is, like, you want to do Shift A to add. Object and edit mode are changed through here. If you apply this subdivision surface and then go into edit mode, you'll see, like, wow, all those, like, now I have all these vertices, and your object will get like harder to change. Remember these, like, for choosing, you know, if you want to, in edit mode, if you want to choose a face rather than just, basically choosing a face is cool because it's selecting 4 vertices rather than 1. If you hold Alt and click in different areas, you can select multiple things at a time. The tool bar menu you can collapse with T, and that's where, if you're in object mode, you can set the shading to flat or smooth, which can help. I guess that's about it for this first one. So yeah, let me know if you want to know more. If you like this way of learning, I can do some more of these. Okay, bye.